What is up YouTube, and we are back with another video. Today's video is all building on the previous video, which was on squat depth and why quarter squats essentially just suck. And in that video I made a statement saying that I think that coaches who only program quarter squats and just believe that this is the best way to squat also are compensating and are a bit lazy. And by lazy I mean they don't want to take the time to either teach a person or get a person and train a person to deep squat. And this is just comes from laziness. I honestly believe this is lazy coaching. And a lot of the times I also think maybe some coaches are just not able to coach players and train players into getting a deep squat. Now listen, before I start this video, I want to talk about the fact that the deep squat is not something that needs to become this arbitrary achievement. It's not something that you need to do in order to be able to do other things. I'm not going to be that coach that says you need to be able to deep squat before you get underneath the bar. I hate all those types of things. I don't believe in arbitrary standards and creating barriers to exercise. Everyone can squat. Even if you don't have a deep squat, just start squatting. You're allowed to. It's not that, because I know there are other coaches on the other spectrum that a lot of times say stupid stuff like, if you can't deep squat, you shouldn't be underneath the bar, you shouldn't even pick up a barbell, don't even look at one. You get coaches like this. It's stupid coaches as well. You could argue which one is worse, I don't know, but all I know is I'm not that coach and I will never be that coach. So here's a few ways that I teach my athletes or train my athletes essentially to deep squat. I think a lot of people get this wrong, and that is why I keep on saying train and teach. Teaching it is very different, because I think some athletes have access to deep squat because it is a mobility thing. Some athletes have access to it and others don't. And it's not something you can just teach necessarily verbally. It's not something I can tell you where I can just say, hey, head up kid, squat lower. No, it doesn't really happen. You need to train a lot of athletes to get into these positions. And a few reasons, especially knees that just aren't strong enough to handle that degree of knee flexion and extension. Maybe it's just not comfortable for them. I'll take an example of one of my athletes who had a knee injury. After his knee injury, the squat was very uncomfortable. Along with this, he is a taller athlete, so he has longer limbs. If you are an athlete who has longer limbs, you will naturally struggle to squat deeper. I don't mean you can't deep squat, I'm just saying you will have a more difficult time, especially if your limb to torso ratio is very different, meaning if your limbs are much longer than your torso. Shorter athletes, me, has a way better time deep squatting. It's just much easier for me and I have way more access to it. However, I couldn't deep squat for a long time because of my knee. When I was younger, I went into this belief that you should probably never deep squat. It hurts me, so I know, oh, it's bad for my knees because I feel pain when I do it. And also coaches told me that quarter squats are great and you can max out, you can squat 200, so why not do it? And then I did it. Surprisingly, my knees were weak and my knee always hurt. When I started training deep squats, my knee pain really went away. It was maybe uncomfortable and also annoying because I had to reduce the weight on the bar a lot of times. But on this journey around 2021, my knee pain really basically went away. And my squat depth improved. And I really think it's because I was training my knee through a full range of motion. So that is the first thing. The other thing would be hip mobility and ankle mobility that might be limiting you. And I honestly think there's one very simple solution. I'm not going to give you tens and thousands of drills for this, just a few simple solutions. The first thing would be to spend more time in a deep squat. All right? This step is going to be the most important step. You need to find a way to deep squat. And what do I mean by this? A lot of people have modifications on exercises that will allow them to deep squat. I'm going to take a tall athlete as an example. If I give them a front squat and I load the bar in the front, they will be more likely to be able to deep squat. And the reason for that is because they keep their torso upright and they will be able to squat down low. Whereas when they back squat, a taller athlete typically, to get into that range, needs to lean forward. And therefore it might be very uncomfortable, it might be limiting because they have a weak back maybe even. So I think for a taller athlete, the first thing I've noticed when I train taller athletes is when I put them in a front squat, their squat automatically looks much better. So that is one way. Another way you can look is to just elevate your heels. This is a simple trick, but this is just the easy way to get you into a deep squat. Some people might say it's cheating. Other people who don't say that are smart, because people who say it's cheating just don't know anything. It's not cheating. It is a modification that you can use to get into a deep squat. I'll give you an example that this is actually, for myself, was the way I got into a deep squat. I only squatted off elevated heels, and after a while reduced the elevation, and after a while it was just me in my shoes deep squatting. So that is just a way to initially get you into deep squat so you can spend more time in it. So the first thing you need to do is find a way to spend time in a deep squat. So find the method how to spend it, how to get into the deep squat, because everyone has those modifications. Elevate your heels, alternate where the load is. If you can't do it with a bar, do it with a dumbbell. Almost everyone can do a deep squat in a goblet squat with a dumbbell. It's pretty easy. The load in the front helps you counterbalance. So because the load is in the front, you can lean more back into your squat, whereas that is not possible in a back squat. So find the method that allows you to deep squat. And then second, the most important, which I already mentioned, spend a lot of time in that deep squat. This is the simplest way. This is honestly the simplest way to get into your deep squat and start training it. A few exercises I like other than this is a squat to target. A squat to target is amazing exercise, especially a lower target. So working on squatting to a low, I like to use like a medicine ball a lot of times, and I try to accumulate a lot of reps here as well. I'll do sets that are difficult as well. And another one would be pause squats, pausing in the bottom. You can do this also with a squat to target, but just where you sit on the weight, or slightly elevate your hips or your bum off the target that you are using. Another one which I honestly like so much is just squat holds, goblet squat holds. This is an amazing exercise. Honestly, if you just spend 60 to 90 seconds here, you will feel amazing, your hips will feel amazing, and this will help already so much for your squat depth. Last one, which I really like, this is especially nice for people who are uncomfortable in certain ranges, so like they don't feel they have a lot of strength there, or they don't feel safe to do it under a bar. You could load it to a single dumbbell and then use a high box. The idea with a high box would be that you step onto the box, but you pause on the front, because that kind of mimics like the deep squat, essentially the arse to grass squat. But essentially you would have both legs there, but one. So when I pause on this video, you'll probably see here, it kind of looks like how you would look in a deep squat. It's very similar. So this is a great way to get you to deep squat, or to feel those deep ranges of motion, and stepping out of that is essentially what you are doing in a squat. But the only difference here with the high box step up is you are starting in the bottom position essentially, which makes it amazing for athletes just to feel how it feels to be in that deeper position.